As we all know, Christmas is full of celebrations. The entire month, the entire Advent season, we are celebrating Christmas. There's Christmas parties, there's Christmas concerts, there's families coming together. We've got decorations up everywhere, lights on our houses, Christmas trees inside of our houses. You know, that one neighbor that everybody has that puts up 15 blow-ups just to celebrate the Christmas season. It gets out of hand, all this celebration. In fact, in Caracas, Venezuela, on Christmas morning every year, they all strap on roller skates and close the streets and just roller skate throughout the entire city to celebrate Christmas. But all these celebrations aren't just celebrating because of celebration's sake, right? There is a good reason for celebrating during Christmas. The true reason is worth huge celebration. Yes, Jesus is born, and that's what we're celebrating. But really, what does that mean? Why are we celebrating? What does it mean to celebrate Christmas? What are the real reasons behind that we are celebrating for? And so this series, we're gonna dive into three different main reasons why we celebrate during this Christmas season. The first is purposeful waiting. We're going to start to understand what it means to wait through the Advent season and why we celebrate that. Secondly, talking about the Word made flesh and the incarnation of our God. And thirdly, we're going to talk about the birth of the Messiah and the importance of that around the Christmas season. Let's jump into the first reason for celebrating Christmas by talking about purposeful waiting. You see, we live in a world that does not wait very well at all. I was in the grocery store just a couple days ago, and there was a few people in front of me in the checkout line and a couple people behind me. And one of the people behind me was just getting so fed up that they had to wait for 5 minutes to check out their groceries. And you think about Christmas morning as a kid, and you're standing at the top of the stairs, and all you want to do is run down there and start ripping open your gifts. But you have to wait until your parents are all ready, they've had their coffee, they're sitting at the couch, and everything is ready to go. You see, we don't do it very well, but Advent is in many ways all about waiting and learning to find the purpose of waiting and to slow down in our waiting. You see, long before Jesus was born, the prophets of the Old Testament prophesied, they announced that there was this coming Messiah to be born, and that he would change absolutely everything. And so you can start to imagine the waiting people, the waiting period that the people who received that prophecy went through, right? They were living in a world that was broken and difficult, and they knew they needed a guide. They knew they needed a savior, a Messiah to come. And so when they heard that news, they were overjoyed. They were rejoicing. They were excited. They were hopeful that this Messiah would come. And so in Advent, we lean into and celebrate that hope and that joy. But the truth is, there's waiting in that, and that waiting has purpose. You see, we need to adopt that same mindset of the Israelite people through that waiting period. We are excitedly awaiting the one who will change everything. And that gives us purpose to wait. And the purpose of the waiting is to spread that hope to others. You see, when a baker spends all that time putting the ingredients measured perfectly out into a pan and putting that pan into the oven, they don't just go down the street instead of waiting for the oven to finish and buy a ready-made cake. No, they know that there's purpose in the waiting. There's purpose in that 40 minutes that the cake has to bake. Or for a couple that's excited about having a baby, starting a family, they don't buy all of the things that they need to set up the baby's room and set it up and then just hurriedly go next door and borrow the neighbor's baby and use that. No, there's purpose in the waiting. And so for us, as we have hope of the coming Messiah, let's live in a way that spreads that hope to other people by celebrating the waiting, slowing down and allowing that hope of Jesus Christ's coming to dictate the way that we live, to dictate the way that we interact with others and that others see us. Because when we can wait truly and live into that hope of the coming Messiah, others will see that and will definitely be drawn closer to him. One of the other reasons that we have to celebrate this Christmas season is the Word made flesh. I remember being in 6th grade at basketball camp, and the coach brought us all together and said, in order to get better at your game, you need to turn your attention to the experts and watch how they play and look at the nuances of their game and start to bring that into your own way of playing so that you can improve. And so what he did was he sat us down, he put on the TV a video montage of Michael Jordan, one of the greatest players of all time, playing. And what he told us to do was look at the way that Michael Jordan shot, look at his form, look at the way he drove down the court with his eyes up so that he could see the vision of the entire court around us. And the more that we could see the little things that Michael Jordan did really well, the more that we could start to be mindful of that in our own game, and so that we could improve and play better basketball. You see, that's similar, but albeit a much smaller scale to Jesus. You see, Jesus is way more than an expert, right? Jesus was fully human, but he was fully God at the same time. And so the example of a life that we have in the Gospels of Jesus walking this earth is one that we can use as an amazing model of our faith. We can look at the life of Jesus and say, he understands the emotions that I have. He is experiencing the same things that I am, but he's doing it differently. He's leading his life differently than I am. He's engaging with people differently than I am. So how can I start to do those things more like him? And the more that we can do that, the more we grow in our discipleship. Another thing that is important about the Word becoming flesh, the incarnation, or Jesus being fully God and fully human, is that we can be confident that he experienced the same things that we have. His emotions were the same as ours. He knows our anger, he knows our excitement, our joy. He understands the ups of life, the downs, the difficult moments. He understands our despair. He understands the way that we get excited. He understands the way that we struggle. And so when I know that I am going through a difficult time and I'm in prayer with Jesus, I can know for sure that he knows how I feel. And what that does in my relationship with him, it gives me opportunity to dive more intimately into that relationship. When I know that he knows me perfectly, he understands what I'm going through, that helps me to become more vulnerable to him. That helps me to give my life more over to him. And so this Advent season, and when we're talking about the Word becoming flesh, we can use Jesus Christ, who is fully God and fully human, as a model for our own way of life and interacting with the people around us, but also as a way to be confident in the intimacy of our relationship with him and continue to grow in that relationship. And of course, on Christmas Day, we celebrate the birth of the Messiah, our Savior, Jesus Christ. And this is the celebration that we most often associate with Christmas, and for good reason. You see, we are celebrating the fact that God came and saved a broken world. The people were living in this brokenness, in this distress, and they couldn't do anything to pull themselves out of it. But what happened was a Savior came. God sent his Son out of his abounding love for us to live on this earth as an example for us, but importantly, to die as a sacrifice to draw us into perfect relationship with him again. You see, this is a celebration of light permanently defeating the darkness, of love conquering fear and death, and it's a celebration of true humility, that the one who is mighty and powerful to save the sins of the world would arrive in the form of a vulnerable baby. You see, friends, the birth of the Messiah is a huge celebration. We are living in this world. We are broken. We are sinful. And there's nothing that we can do on our own power to bring us out of that. But God, through his love, sent his Son for you and for me to live on this earth and die as a sacrifice so that we could one day be in perfect relationship with him again. And that is worth celebrating. That is worth living our lives for and celebrating, not just 1 month out of the year, but every single day of every single year of our lives. So what does it look like to celebrate the coming of the Messiah in our lives? You see, the season isn't just gifts and Hallmark movies and candy cans, but the real source of Christmas gives us infinitely more reason to celebrate. And so as we start to think about these three main celebrations, how can we lean into the waiting? How can we start to get closer in intimacy with Jesus and follow his model of living a life for God? And finally, how can we celebrate the birth of a Savior this season? What do those three aspects or reasons of rejoicing this season mean for the way that you celebrate this Christmas?